Access to the various reports available in Manager is controlled by a set of permissions that need to be assigned to the user who needs to access these reports. Or, specifically, the permissions need to be assigned to a role that is then assigned to the users who require access. In the 24.11 release in November 2024, these permissions were changed to more tightly control access to reports that contain user-specific information. Basically, any report where you can see tracking data for a specific user. This has been done to ensure that data privacy laws, primarily those in the EU, are being adhered to. So starting in 24.11, the Views Reports permission only gives access to the SAP Companion Usage, SAP Companion for Desktop Usage, and Guided Tour Playbacks reports. Access to most of the other reports is controlled by the new Views Reports with Personal Data permission, although some reports have their own permissions, namely the Objects in Editing report, for which access is controlled by the Editing Report View permission, the Status report, which is controlled by the Status Report Edit and Status Report View permissions, depending on the level of access required, the Server Statistics report, which is controlled by the Server Statistics View permission, and the Report Scheduler, which also has two permissions, Scheduler Edit Jobs and Scheduler View Jobs, again depending on the level of access required. However, things are a little more complicated than this, as there are some codependencies in the permissions. If a user has the Views Reports with Personal Data permission, they must also have the Views Reports permission, which will also then give them access to the SAP Companion reports associated with that permission. This is really the driver behind the Views Reports with Personal Data permission, as it carves out these reports from the standard Views Reports permission. Effectively, it's an add-on, not an alternative. Then we have the Editing Report View permission, which also requires the Views Reports with Personal Data permission. But, interestingly, in this case, the user does not also have to have the Views Reports permission. This strikes me as a little bit inconsistent, so it wouldn't surprise me if this is corrected in a later release so that View Reports is also required. Next, if a user is granted the Status Report Edit permission, they must also be granted the Status Report View permission. And if a user is granted the Scheduler Edit Jobs permission, they must also have the Scheduler View Jobs permission. Finally, the All Raw report listed here is only available if it's been explicitly enabled in the Expert features on Manager, which is not by default. If it is enabled, it requires the Views Reports with Personal Data permission and the Views Reports permission. To clarify all of this, you can click on a report listed here to show the specific permission or permissions required for that report, and you can click on a permission to see which reports that permission grants access to. Click the Reset button to revert to showing all connections.